Players only meeting didn't take. Taking the ball to start the game didn't work. The Bills can't get out of their own way right now on offense. And with that, the chances of making the playoffs are really starting to fade away. I'm Kevin Carroll. Welcome to Buffalo End Zone Podcast, everyone. Bills falling to the Broncos on Monday Night Football, 24-22.
Bills, I'm Jon Scott. I can barely get my name out because I don't even know where to start, Kevin. I don't know what to say at this point. I'm going to have a lot to say. And I'll start by saying this, Kevin. Maybe this is just who the Buffalo Bills in 2023 are. Is that possible, that this is just a flawed football team that cannot get out of their own way? That's such a simplistic way of doing it, and it's far more complex. But just as a kicking off point, is it just that this is a flawed football team that is prone to self-inflicted mistakes, and maybe they aren't helped out with coaching and injuries and things like that, but if you boil it down simply, they make too many mistakes that good football teams simply don't.
Right, and right now we're at a part of the season, John, where the Bills are now 5-5. So they're at 500 with the harder part of their schedule coming up. So that's the dilemma they're in. That's what they've put themselves here. This is what they're facing, John, and a team. Turnovers, John. They commit a ton of turnovers. They don't get a ton of turnovers from the defense coming back the other way right now. And I'm not going to sit here and crap all over the Bills defense, because what's being put together there, in the fact that you have Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and all these stars on offense, and it's the defense that's been keeping them in games lately, is just incredible to me. I mean, we could sit here and say, maybe this is what the 2023 Buffalo Bills are, but my brain can't comprehend that, John. When you look at this team on paper and what they should be able to do and just aren't doing, it makes no sense. To me, I'm starting to think that Josh Allen's right shoulder injury might be mentally bothering him as well as physically bothering him, because he did not look right at all during this game. Body language, his decision-making, his placement of footballs has just, tonight in the loss to the Broncos, and he had a hand in 3 of the 4 turnovers as well. Just something's not right. And you could probably, with Josh Allen, pile up on other things of his off season. He's the Madden cover boy, dating a Hollywood star. Part of the match was he even focused? Was he too full of himself going into this year? He's not the guy he was the last 3 seasons, for sure.
I think it's more between the ears than it is physically for him. I don't know. I'm only taking what is at face value in terms of the facts, where injury report wise, full go the entire week leading into this one. The week prior, he was not. The week prior, he did not warm up in Cincinnati the way he usually does. He did so before this football game. And in terms of watching him throw the football, it doesn't look like he's having issues. To me, it's decision making. And some of this poor decision making we've seen since literally the first night of the season against the New York Jets. That was maybe the most extreme issues that we've seen from Allen. Tonight was pretty bad, though. Tonight was bad. I mean, one was off Gabe Davis's hands, but the one right before the half, the throw was never there. And ironically enough, it seems like that's maybe the exact same play or the exact same throw where he was intercepted in Cincinnati on Monday night. And I think he's been intercepted and missed that throw at least one other time throughout the regular season. Josh Allen just seems broken, for lack of a better term. I don't know what better way to describe it, because he doesn't throw some passes that you think he should. He throws balls that you don't think he should, and nobody would really say that they were ever the right decision to make. He seems hesitant to run. They're not calling designed runs. And the elements that make Josh Allen, great, arguably the best quarterback in football, elevated to a place deserving of being on the cover of Madden, we haven't seen it. I mean, we saw it in Miami game, but it's almost seeming like the Miami game, maybe that Vegas game, are more the exception to the rule this season than the other way around, to where this is what Allen is this year: turnover prone, poor decision making, accuracy issues at times, like on the fourth down where he could have run for it, seemed indecisive, didn't want to do it, then just threw a horrible pass to Khalil Shakir. Self-inflicted mistakes. This is not Josh Allen. This is not Josh Allen. And I don't know how much of that you could put on the coaching staff, how much you can put on Josh Allen. There's probably some equation that puts blame on both. But it doesn't really matter who's to blame. It's more about the current facts. And the facts are the Bills are 5-5. And I'm not putting it all on Josh Allen, but I think they'd have a different record if Josh Allen was the Superman and the Josh Allen we've seen over the past few years.
And Josh Allen, during the post-game press conference for, I don't know, what is this, the third or fourth week in a row, talked about the fact that the team has experienced tough times like this before and have been able to turn it around. I guess I'm going to ask, how many weeks are you going to keep saying that? I get it. We're kind of, I guess, at the beginning of November right now, and you still got, the rest of this month to go, and then you get into December when it gets tougher. But like we pointed out during the podcast leading up to the game, they don't have a chump schedule like they did 2 years ago when they were winning every other game. This was supposed to be the game where they really get back on track. You had a players-only meeting that I just thought was garbage from the beginning. A lot of talk. Who cares? You get into this, and it's accountability, and it's playing complementary football, and we all know what's on the – and then you literally come out, John, and fumble the first play of the game, and James Cook ended up having a really good game and a really solid performance against the Denver Broncos, which you thought he might with how the Broncos' run defense is. But to start the game like that, I kind of chuckled to myself because there's been all this talk of, well, what the Bills need to do is they need to take the ball first, march down the field, make a statement that, that offense is back. Instead, what do? They take the ball first and hand it over to the Denver Broncos, who the Broncos are so inept they didn't do much off of these turnovers throughout the day. But my God, what a deflating, if you're a Bills fan, what a deflating start to this. You're all, you're sitting there, you got all your drinks and your snacks in front of you ready for Monday Night Football, and that's the start to the game, and then it's followed up by a ball going through Gabe Davis's hand, giving Josh Allen threw a heater at him, and I wouldn't want to try and catch that, gloves or no gloves, but that's Gabe Davis. He should have had that catch right there, but holy crap, the entire start to that game was just a mess.
You mentioned the players-only meeting, and what was the message Latavius Murray said during this week of why he felt it was necessary, why he wanted to be the one leading that for a second time, we come to find in the past few weeks. It was a search for answers, accountability, trying to, amongst the players themselves, independent of the coaching staff, what can they do to make things better? Well, who are the people making all of the mistakes in this game against the Broncos? It's the players. James Cook fumbles the first play. Then there was a near interception by Josh Allen on the first play of the next drive. It was not an interception, but there was a holding penalty. Gabe Davis off his hands. It's intercepted. There were 2 false starts on that drive as well. Dalton Kincaid, a drop in the second quarter. Then Josh Allen, an interception late in the second half. You open up the third quarter. Stephon Diggs, an uncharacteristic drop as well. And then, of course, penalties complicated and compounded and headlined by 12 men on the field in what ultimately is a play that cost them the game. Those are all things that are on players. I know special teams is a little different, but all of those penalties I just rattled off and mistakes are by people on the offensive side of the ball. So you have this meeting full of guys on the offensive side of the ball discussing how you collectively as players can do better to help things go in the right direction. And then you come out days later and perform like this. It's incredible to me. And listen, Stephon Diggs is incredible. So dropping a pass, it's going to happen. Mistakes happen. The problem with the Buffalo Bills are they are operating so poorly offensively that they just cannot overcome mistakes. They cannot even really overcome one mistake or two mistakes. When you throw in a bucket 10, 12 plus mistakes with seemingly half of the guys that are seeing run out there, it's a losing battle up there. And that's where they're at. And it's telling that something like that comes after a players only meeting. After the Cincinnati game, you and I railed on Ken Dorsey. We put most of the blame on him. I'm here to say after this loss to the Denver Broncos, I'm putting it solely on the shoulders of the players. They're the ones who screwed it up. Ken Dorsey's play calling isn't why people are dropping passes or getting penalties, or Josh Allen is making poor decisions with the football and can't hand off a snap to James Cook and all of that. That has nothing to do with Ken Dorsey. It has nothing to do with Sean McDermott. It has nothing to do with any of the coaching staff that stands on the sidelines during these football games. These were all mistakes that go squarely on the players, and that's not taking, things and criticisms away from Ken Dorsey, because I still think there is room to grow pretty largely in terms of scheme and play calling. But if we're isolating things to just tonight against the Denver Broncos, boy, man, big L for the players.
Embarrassing is what I would say for the players on that side of the ball. Just an embarrassing performance. 2 embarrassing performances in a row in primetime. Maybe the Bills won't get all these primetime games next season after the product that they put out there. But, you talk about accountability and all this stuff leading up to this game. And again, I started off by saying something doesn't seem right with Josh Allen, and I bring up his injury to his shoulder on his throwing arm, but more of a mental thing that maybe he's just being too cautious and not being himself in this. Because you're right. When we bag on Ken Dorsey after last week in play calling, it was not the play calling in this one. It was Josh Allen putting balls in weird places. It was, like you said, unable to give a simple handoff to James Cook, leading to a turnover. It's your star quarterback just continues to be indecisive, John, and when the other pieces of the offense also aren't helping, which is what we saw from, like you said, the pass catchers, I would say Latavius Murray, okay, I think he did what he was brought in to do in this game.
He had a drop, by the way.
He did have a drop. Son of a gun, I forgot all about that. He did. So, yeah, throw him in there too. Holding each other accountable and having this embarrassing performance. And while on the other side, you have a unit that is holding up to their end of the bargain despite being so shorthanded, and even more shorthanded as the season has gone on, that there was talk during the postgame about, well, now they're going to start hearing it from the national media and the media about how bad they are. I can't help but wonder if you're on the defensive side of the ball, if you're just like, what else do we need to do? That unit over there is supposed to be putting up at least 30 points, 28 points a game, and we're holding up to our end of the bargain with backup players coming in. And it's just, it has to be extremely frustrating to be putting that kind of product out on the field on offense and having your defense do basically everything they can to keep you in games, and then you just go out there in 4 turnovers in this game after saying, we need to start to right the ship, and Josh Allen continuing to talk about, well, we've overcome this before. It's becoming tired at this point, John, and we say the proof is in the pudding, and it's not there.
That was a good rant you had there. You went on like 7 different things: offense, defense, Allen, shoulder. That was good. I'm gonna pick one place to go here.
Yeah.
And then we can spin off.
Yeah.
The idea that because they've overcome adversity in the past, that they know how to and can do it now, I think is flawed, like many things with this team. When the Bills in 2017 lost 3 games in a row, they were just getting outmanned. I mean, we understand what that team is, especially looking back at it. They overachieved. They probably shouldn't have made the playoffs. It was a great coaching job, kind of galvanizing the underdogs to defy all of the odds and make the playoffs. It was a different story at that point in time. Even in 21, they kind of had a little lull in there as well, losing to Jacksonville and things like that. Okay, but they always showed more. It wasn't this 6-week window where the offense looks horrible, where Josh Allen doesn't look like himself, where you're littered with injuries on the defensive side of the ball. It was different circumstances here. And even last year when they struggled a bit and Allen got hurt, and they lose 2 in a row, and then they rip off 8 in a row. I mean, Sean McDermott referenced that exact thing on Thursday or Friday going into this game. They're not the same. They're just, the circumstances are different. This is the worst this team has looked and played, especially offensively, since Josh Allen has been the quarterback. Outside of his rookie year, which, you throw it out, he was hurt for half of it. That's a different story. Since 2019, this is the worst they've looked. And arguably, it's the most talented that they've ever been. So this idea that we've been here before, so we know how to do it, no way, man. That is baloney to me. And is Bill Belichick saying that when they have 2 wins and they look horrible? Well, I've been here before, so I know how to get through it. Bill O'Brien's been here before. Stop it. Like, no one, just because you've been there, is guaranteed to know. And even if you know what it takes to get out of it, does that mean that you can? There's certain things where obviously there's a dialogue between the media. Questions are asked, they're going to answer it. And I'm not saying they have to be completely honest and straightforward, but I think I didn't like it this week, and I didn't like hearing it afterwards, to hear this idea that, oh, well, we've navigated adversity before, it's one day at a time and all of this. Right. I get it. It's one day at a time, but the past has nothing to do with this, and I don't even think that they correlate with each other.
Yeah, I think this might have been more of like a media question angle, but I think Mitch Morse touched on it. I think Sean McDermott talked about big changes might be needed moving forward, or the correct word that was used is escaping me right now. Drastic moves may need to be made moving forward. What does that even mean? I just you're just flummoxed trying to figure this out. What does it mean? Get Diggs the ball more? Tell Josh Allen to stop over. I'm just trying to figure what drastic change could be done to this team other than maybe simplifying the offense down to bare bones and not having it be as complicated to run. I don't know.
I mean, these are things at this point in the season that can be drastic. You can fire coaches. I mean, that's drastic. So I don't particularly think, looking at the Denver game isolated, as I've already said, that that warrants Ken Dorsey being fired. But if you look at 10 games plus last year, as we went in the last podcast after the Bengals game, all right, I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not calling for it to happen, but that's drastic. Special teams has been bad all season, and it cost him the game here tonight. Is firing Matthew Smiley drastic? Is that going to resonate through a team that is having trouble offensively if you get rid of the special teams coordinator? I don't know, but firing a coach is drastic to me mid-season. The other thing that you can do drastically is you start benching people and you put different guys in there. Here is the problem, Kevin. Who the heck are you going to bench? You sure as heck are not benching Josh Allen.
Right.
You benched James Cook for 16 plays after he fumbled, and Latavius Murray's there. So were they all this? But then Cook goes for 12 for 109, catches 2 passes for 11. I mean, he was a dynamic aspect of this offense. Are you going to put this second-year player on ice because he fumbled and roll with Latavius Murray and maybe Leonard Fournette? What about on the receivers? Are you going to bench Gabe Davis? Who's going to play instead of Gabe Davis?
Right.
That's what I want to know, because you have Stephon Diggs. Khalil Shakir has had great games in back-to-back weeks. The guy's completely invisible. Trent Sherfield is knocked out of the game with an ankle injury. Deontay Hardy continues to have 1 target, no catches, so he's a non-factor. Who are you going to put it at wide receiver instead of Gabe Davis if you want to send a message and be drastic? There's no options. What are you going to do? I mean, at this point in time, like, drastic to me was you go get Devontae Adams, or you make some sort of a move, but they did it to fill needs on the defensive side of things due to injuries. The Bills, outside of Dawson Knox, are healthy. It's not working. So I don't know what they mean drastically. I suppose you could have a drastic shift in philosophy and say, well, I don't care where we are on the field, what the score is, what the time is, complimentary football, this and that. We're going to run up tempo 4 or 5 wide all the time, and we're going to live and die by it, like K-gun style, and see if that's what we need. I don't know. I mean, these
Which
are...
I think is what the consensus is, what they should be doing. Because when they go up tempo and they put their foot on the gas pedal, they're moving the ball. They're getting chunk plays that they're just not doing when they're not operating like that.
Fine. I mean, but these are the things that I guess pop to my mind that could be construed as drastic as you enter week 11. I just don't know how much of that's realistic, and honestly, if how much of that is really going to lead to change. I mean, I think the problem with this team is they literally are probably like 4 or 5 plays a game away from this thing being a completely different story. Mm-hmm. I mean, you take away the Dalton Kincaid fumble in Cincinnati. How does that game play out differently? Who the heck knows? If you take 12 men off the field at the end of this one, they squeak out with a whoopsie, look what I found out of my behind W against Denver. If you look at, Josh Allen and some of these idiotic interceptions against the Jets, I mean, you could do this all the time, but I feel like that's what they've been holding on to when they say these things of, we just can't hurt ourselves, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Kevin, coming out of this game, did the Denver Broncos beat the Bills, or did the Bills beat the Bills?
The Bills beat the Bills. In fact,
so that's the problem, because I feel like New England, you could say that. The Jets, you certainly could say that. I think that's the problem with this team is you're trying to have accountability and get urgent, but they keep saying, oh, well, I mean, we're right on the verge of it. I guess you're on the verge of maybe winning games, but you're not on the verge of being a well-tuned machine offensively like they need to be. Drastic, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what even take drastic out of it. What changes could be made at this point in time that give you confidence that they can magically, against a good Jets defense, flip it over and say, oh, that's right, this is how it works, and you feel confident. And you talk about the daunting schedule down the path. Who cares what the schedule is? They can't beat Denver. They barely beat Tampa or the Giants. They lost to New England and the Jets. To me, it's completely irrelevant. It means nothing who they're playing down the stretch, because I don't think you could have confidence at this point they could beat anybody.
And I 100% agree with you. If we want to play a play here, a play there, a play here, a play there, or whatever, the Buccaneers and the Giants could have also beat the Bills if breaks went a certain way. So when you live in that realm of, well, if this went our way, if this or that, and blah, 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 it goes the other way too. And I guess when you bring up the rest of the schedule, I think that's the point. If you can't beat the Broncos and you can't beat the Jets, and it's not even it's a matter of the offense being able to put up points. I don't know how the heck they're going to put up points on and be able to hang with what the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the Eagles are going to bring to the table. I just don't know at this stage. And the part, and we'll keep going around on this, that really gets you scratching your head is you look at that roster on offense, and it should be one that's dominating teams, especially bad teams, lower tier teams, and they're just not. You have the Jets coming up, John. I think the early was the Bills were given 7.5. I don't see that holding throughout the week leading up to this game. I think. Go ahead.
Well, we'll save it for the preview pod. I'm just going to say I may just put my mortgage payment on the under.
Right, exactly.
But let's shift to the defense, because you mentioned that they're doing their job. Kevin, Denver ran 71 plays of offense. Do you know how much total yards they gained?
253.
300.
No!
That's 4.2 yards per play for the Denver Broncos. 4.2. They had the ball for 37 minutes and 21 seconds to the Bills' 22:39. So 15 minutes more. The Bills' defense was on the field, and they still were holding the Broncos to 4.2 yards per game. How often were they put in horrible field position due to special teams of the offense turning the football over? And listen, remember what we said going into it. Russell Wilson is not cooking like he used to, but he's efficient. He's not turning the football over, and he's making plays when needed. Lo and behold, 24-29, 193 yards, but 2 touchdowns. He ran for 30 yards, and you just know what his legs were doing with those little flips, especially late in the game. He was scrambling around. I mean, Russell Wilson was good. He was not – I saw some people say, oh, Russ is cooking like he used to. No, he's not. 24 completions for 193 yards. Get out of here. But this is what they're asking Russ to do, and he's doing it well under Sean Payton. Now 18 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions on the entire season. This is efficient football that, to be honest with you, maybe if the Bills were getting this type of quarterback play, their offense would at least maybe move it a little bit more. I mean, they're not doing much on offense. The Bills' defense did great. 21 carries for Javonte Williams for 79 yards, 3.8. It kind of seemed like he was ripping off more than that, but those are good numbers. The Bills' defense held up well. Yes, you would like for them to, when they're in these opportunities late in games where they need to get just one more stand, that they could hold up. They've kind of had issues doing that. I mean, they almost gave it up to Tampa. They almost gave it up to the Giants. They gave it up to New England. You know what? I mean, that's where it is. You talk about complimentary, so they're not completely off the hook. But they're on the field 15 minutes more, Kevin, and they only allowed 24 points on 300 yards total offense, 4.2 per play. I mean, they did their job.
I think part of my point with when it comes to the defense is, or you have the feeling watching the defense play in the offense continuing not to help them, that they can't hold up till the end if the offense and special teams keeps putting them in this situation. Like that's how I felt. I'm like, the Bills needed to score or get one more field goal along there, and the defense might be able to hold. But instead, they're doing their job. The game keeps rolling on, and as a viewer of the game, you just sit there and you're like, this defense can't keep doing this. Eventually, something's going to break through, and inevitably, that's what happened. Like you said, the Giants game, the Buccaneers game, this game where the Broncos actually won because they got the 12 men on the field for the field goal at the end there. But so when it comes to complimentary football, you're not getting the compliment from the offense to the point where the defense has basically done all they can do. And then you come to drives at the end of games and you're like, well, the Bills defense couldn't close it out. I mean, I'm not going to make excuses, but come on, man. They played a great game. Just do more on offense, and that defense was good enough to win you a game.
Oh, by no means am I throwing blame. I agree with you. They did fantastic, all things considered. There's still room to grow, and they got 4 sacks in Russell Wilson. The Terrell Bernard, I think, was, a gift sack where Wilson runs up in the pocket, and Bernard kind of was there as he slid. But Greg Rousseau getting one in, A.J. Epinesa 1.5 sacks. So good to see those young pass rushers getting back into the mix. Still haven't seen much from Von Miller, this one against his former team.
Right.
But they were getting to Wilson, pressuring him, but they were having trouble taking him down. It got better as the game went on. I think the Bills made a good adjustment. Sean McDermott making a good adjustment where, especially on passing downs, they'd bring Dorian Williams in, take a defensive lineman out. Williams would spy, and then they would still go with that 3 safety look with Micah Hyde out. That was meaning Cam Lewis in the back, Taylor Rapp, and Poyer still down in the box. It's a good wrinkle and a good thing to see, to illustrate and articulate the way Sean McDermott is manipulating things when he has an undermanned unit. I mean, usually if you have Matt Milano out there and Terrell Bernard, you don't really have to worry about it as much. And this is his way of kind of, working with what he's got here. I agree. The defense has done well, but, there still is room to grow. They forced 1 turnover. It was their first turnover in 3 games, dating back to the New England game. Only their second one since they came back from London.
Right.
In 6 games at this point in time. And so for that side of the ball, we mentioned it going into it, they need to get back to taking the quarterback down. 4 sacks is a good start. They need to get back to turning the football over. They got 1, so steps in the right direction. I'm not taking anything away from their performance, but if we're just going to look objectively at it, yes, I'm not saying they need to do more, but just projecting forward, these are ways that they can continue to get better.
And I mean, before we head out, John, the ending itself was just brutal. Taron Johnson was all over the field in this game. And it comes down to Russell Wilson throwing this rainbow football like he has done forever and gets the pass interference call down the middle of the field, which is probably more than likely what they were hoping for rather than a big touchdown deep pass play. The pressure was on him, and then that sets up a field goal attempt, and it's missed, but the Bills have 12 players on the field. Just a total sloppy ending to the game.
It's unacceptable, right? I mean, it was almost a poetic nail in the coffin for a team who all night was killing themselves and putting themselves in horrible positions. And it looked like above all of that, they still were going to come out on top with the win they had no business getting. And then they had one more mistake that ultimately cost them and gave them the fate they probably deserved in this one and put them on the outside big time looking into the postseason. Special teams have not been great, Kevin. I know that's kind of your forte to talk about here, and usually it's an afterthought. but Tyler Bass, he had that little hiccup. Sam Martin he's had moments where he's been great, but I don't think he's looked great the past couple times, especially here inside this stadium. I think he's had some interesting ones. Cincinnati, he wasn't punting particularly well. I think the coverage units have struggled at times. You saw it again here this evening. And that obviously leads all the way back to the very first game where they lost on a walk-off punt return in overtime. So I think Matthew Smiley under the microscope as well. Like I said, I'm not calling for anyone's job. I'm just saying if you're throwing out the word drastic, and this is the way you lose a game like this, and you're looking at maybe 10-game sample size, I think special teams has been bad. So you can overcome it and kind of whip past it in our conversations when the Bills are scoring 30 points a game or the defense is allowing the yardage that they allowed here this evening. But when you just throw it all into the pot, it is expanded upon because they're just struggling to do really anything right at this point.
And time's running out, like big time. We'll end up saying this, depending on how the rest of the season goes week after week. But eventually you hit that line, Jon, where no, you're not going to the playoffs. And after all that's been said surrounding this Bills team and where they're at right now, I am fully in the camp of this team will not be playing football in the playoffs if things stay the way they are right now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree.
Well,
with
yeah,
that.
That's stating the obvious. But
what I'm saying is this, and we kind of even talked about it, although the way things shook out, with the win against Denver, they would have had this path. The wild card is gone. I mean, they're 5-5. Cincinnati's 5-4. Houston's 5-4. Cleveland 6-3. Pittsburgh 6-3. Those are your teams. Indianapolis 5-5 is above the Bills. You have Vegas at 5-5. The Chargers are 4-5. The Bills play them. Jets are 4-5, and they've already beat the Bills. Denver now 4-5. I mean, I just don't see a path to the playoffs through the wild card for the Bills. I think the only way they're getting in is if they can somehow beat Miami. And here's the good thing, if there is one. They're now 2 games back in the loss column. Miami's 6-3 on a bye. Buffalo's 5-5. You understand they play each other the last game of the season. So if the Bills could somehow win that, it means they just need Miami to they have to keep pace with Miami, which obviously is a tall task, but they have a path to do so, a tall one. And I think their percentages, I think I heard with the loss to make the playoffs are down like 20%. As I said on our post-game show, this team loves being the underdog, counted out, chip on their shoulder. This is where they prefer to be. Well, okay, because this is where they're going to be for the next 7 games. I mean, they are counted out, and no one thinks that they can get it done because after everything we've said for the past 40-plus minutes, they haven't shown it. Not even just tonight against the Denver Broncos. They haven't shown it the 9 other games. Well, we'll take Vegas and Miami out of the equation. Beyond that, they haven't shown that they're a playoff football team. So they're going to have to do a lot of just put up and shut up and do it.
Miami's coming out of the bye, and they really are hitting the soft spot of their schedule. So this is going to be a bit tricky, Jon. It starts with the Jets coming up. So now we have a short week for the Bills because they were on Monday Night Football. They play in the 4 o'clock window next Sunday, hosting the Jets. And again, that game on paper says the Bills should win, but we all know the history with Josh Allen against the current Jets defense.
Believe it when I see it, Kevin. That's kind of going to be where I'm at this point. I mean, you see the Jets' struggles offensively. I mean, at this point, maybe you only have to score 17 points to beat the Bills. I mean, it's a wild thing to say, and that's a tall order for the Jets with Zach Wilson. Right. But the Bills also they put Denver in positions that made it easier on shorter fields to at least even claw out 3 points. And that's where the mistakes are the problem. They're allowing teams to get an advantage in areas where they don't necessarily thrive. And to put up 24 points and only have 300 yards total offense, I mean, I think that's pretty impressive, especially when you had the ball for 37 minutes. I mean, that's the type of game that New York's going to try to play. And if the Bills give them the ball and lose possessions, the same outcome really could come.
Yeah, playoff hopes fading away fast right now as we're in November. Bills and Jets coming up next Sunday. John and I will be back with a preview to that game with another Buffalo End Zone podcast coming up on Wednesday. That's it. Bills at 5-5 now. Another ugly game for the offense. For Jon Scott, I'm Kevin Carroll. Thanks as always for joining us, everyone.